Okay. I'd like to call to order the Town of Fraser Board of Trustees meeting Wednesday, October 1st, 2025 at 6 p.m. Can I have a roll call, please?
Katie Fisher,
Adam Quicklin,
Peggy Smith,
Julie White,
Louis Gregory.
Katie Souls.
And Brian Cirkvenik. Could I have an approval of the agenda, please?
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Could I have a motion to approve the consent agenda, which includes the minutes for September 17th, 2025, recommending approval of final plat and major site plan for Centrum Condominiums, motion for continuance?
So moved. Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. We'll now move on to open forum. So again, this is for business not on the agenda. We ask that people stick to 3 minutes of speaking. This is not to restrict anyone. This is just to keep the town board meeting moving. If you do have more that you want to speak about, you can meet with town staff, you can meet with me, or you can reach out to the town clerk and you can get an agenda item put on for a future meeting. But at this time, I'd like to invite anybody in the audience to come up, and you have 3 minutes of time.
Hi, Cornell Quinn, Fraser. In regards to your 3-minute rule, at the last meeting, you let everybody else speak over their time limits you had on the agenda. And then you invited a trustee's son to come speak for 15 minutes. Meanwhile, you had 10 people in the audience and several people not in the audience, but online, that wanted their voices heard. And their voice that they wanted you to hear was, in a small town, they shouldn't have to fight the government to be treated fairly and honestly, Brian. And out of respect for Chief Trainer, that's all I have to say tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, anyone online? Okay. All right, moving on to discussion possible action regarding the draft budget. Lori.
Homer.
I apologize. My computer must have just updated and decided I needed to get new Microsoft Authenticator.
Oh, great.
And I already have the Microsoft Authenticator and now it's arguing. And so I apologize for that. I'll just do it by paper. Good evening, Mayor and Trustees. Lori Waters, Town of Fraser Finance Director. Tonight was basically pursuant to CRS 291105. I am presenting you with, you have an electronic and now a hard copy of your 2026 draft budget. This is the draft. So there will be still time to adjust, make changes, all of that good stuff. But there were a few things that I wanted to hopefully make you aware of as you're going down the draft budget. Seeing so I'm doing this on paper. Basically, all of your revenue and everything is still the same. This is what we're anticipating for 2026. And then salaries, most of that stuff is the same. But if you get to page 3, You might start seeing some highlighted, the GL accounts, 1060-330. That's not a new one, but we were still working on that one. Professional services, we're still looking into that one. But some of the other ones are being added. If you go to page 4, you'll see a new one that I'm having to add. It's going to be a transfer to the Housing Authority. That's so that the funds that you appropriated for the loan, I will make an official transfer to the Housing Authority, and then those funds will be used out of the Housing Authority under construction. So you can go all the way to the very last page, 12, and you'll see where we have new costs there that will be tracking the St. Louis Landing construction. So there's like a development agreement that's coming up, and construction costs, those are new, still to be entered. Yeah, all the way to the very last page. There you go. Those are just new accounts that are being added and being utilized. Also, there's the transfer in from the debt service fund. Moving along, restricted revenue funds, all kinds of things. The one I want you to be aware
Where
of.
are you, Lorraine?
Oh, sorry.
What page are you on now?
Page 5
Thank you.
was kind of blasting past restricted revenue and conservation trust fund.
Thank you.
Page 6 is capital equipment replacement. We're starting to budget for purchase of some big heavy equipment. We're starting to set some funds aside, and we also have some fleet purchases that are going on. So we're getting ready for those. The capital asset fund, this is where we're going to track the cost for the public works facility. So this one's coming alive. Normally there's not a lot of going on in this one. So the transfer in from the debt service fund for public works is $11,550,000. This is the COPs, and we're anticipating about a 35% project completion in 2026. We're just trying to make sure that we're showing we're going to be having those expenditures. And then the capital project buildings, that's the 3240-825 that's highlighted in yellow. That's where all the expenditures will be tracked going out to pay for the public works.
So again, COPs will come back to the board for final approval. We're just budgeting for that. Should the board change direction or strategy, we will adjust for that, but we're just trying to account for that with that assumption. So just so you know, that's not a approved done deal. That will come back to the board with all the.
Oh yeah, this is just the draft. This is where we're going. It's new territory. It was very new territory for me. Lot of nervousness along with, on page 8, here's where the real action took place. Page 8 is your debt service fund, and it is going to get very, very exciting. So I am tracking the bond proceeds for the St. Louis Landing, and then right below it, the COP funds for the Public Works facility. Now, the bond proceeds is actually in 2 places. If you go down to where it says 4030825 capitalized bond interest, that 3,566,230, if added to the total bond proceeds, would total the 33 million. But the reason it is in capitalized bond interest, this is what we're going to use to pay the first interest, and it comes from the bond proceeds. This was instructed by the financial crew. So these funds are actually there to help pay the interest in the first year. So we're setting those aside. We're also anticipating the I have two lines because these are going to be two separate funds in Colorado Trust. These monies will not be just in one. They are going in two separate funds. So the Colorado Trust Fund for the St. Louis Landing interest from the bond, at about a 4%. Hopefully we stay about there. Anticipating $1,120,000 in interest for the year. And then the Public Works is going to be, whenever the funds are approved and finally get here, I was anticipating about 6 months worth of interest to hopefully start earning to help offset the lease payments that we'll be making for the bonds. Or, excuse me, COPs, sorry. So then down below, this is just going to track the cost of issuance, the cost of the COP, the cost of the bonds. I worked with the Hilltop Financial to help me get these numbers as close as possible. They're not absolutely dead on, but they're really close. We also have the lease principal payment based on 6 months of the year for the COP is about $1,486,000 for the first year. We also have possible bond agent fees. And then we get into where we're going to be doing a lot of the transfers. The $2,679,840 is a transfer to the debt service reserves. This comes from the bond financing, and this is basically a mandatory transfer that we set this aside. And then the two transfers to the capital asset fund for the Public Works. That's the estimated amount of construction we hope to complete next year. And then right below it, the transfer to the Housing Authority is $16,697,460. And we are hoping that is going to be about 60% of the project, two buildings. Yeah, we're just working on percentages and trying to get, a good amount in there so we look like we're budgeting responsibly. And yeah, that was exciting for me.
Yeah.
Any questions about your new debt servicing action? Because everything else, the water fund, the wastewater fund, we're still working through a few projects, trying to make sure as we kind of really focus in on what's really going to get done. Anytime any changes come up, they'll be highlighted for you and I will notify the board as soon as we get to a point to where, we'll have a workshop too. And then we will also be discussing this along the way. Any huge changes before final approval, I will definitely make sure the board is aware. That's substantial, like all of a sudden $1 million, I'm definitely going to let you know about it. And then the Fraser Housing Authority, as I said, is now going to be getting ready to receive, I've got it where transfer in from the debt service fund. And then you're going to see the offsetting amount we plan on for costs that year. So that fund should necessarily zero out or it'll be corrected during audit. But for the budget, we wanted to show the in and the out of those funds.
Makes me nervous. Are we going to be able to pay off all this debt?
A lot of debt, and we're working through a baseline budget process right now to ensure a sustainable budget before we start any work on the COP process.
Okay.
We've got the design for the public works facilities. We've got the budget for the road, finalized construction, and addressing the drainage issues on the underpass that goes up to the public works facilities up there. But that's something that we're working on actively right now. Our baseline budget, when you zero out things like capital projects, grants, we have another big chunk that's going towards St. Louis Landing to finish out the grant matches that we have for the grants we have. Once you zero out these different things, your new revenues budget is about $7.8 million. So what we're working on is going back to looking at a baseline budget to ensure the sustainability of being able to pay the COP payment and what that looks like and how much is left over from that. So we're working on that right now, and we'll be bringing you guys a tighter budget once we figure in that payment.
Okay.
But for next year, you'll see there. Sits. For the debt service fund on the bottom of page 6, the benefit that we have for next year is that we get to take advantage of the COP proceeds. If it is the finalized $33.5 million, those proceeds will get the 4% Colorado Trust interest earnings on that. So that's why you have the COP, the interest earnings for the COPs, which is 40-30-820. So that helps offset that payment that's prorated for next year. But then in 2027, we'll be looking at the full COP rental payment, which is for 30 years at that $2.2 million mark. So we're working on the baseline budget, looking at the sustainability of being able to make that payment with confidence every year. In addition to having some other funds available for special projects and things, while also maintaining the capital improvement plan that's adopted by the board for the water and wastewater infrastructure projects. So more to come on that. We're working on that and verifying a lot of this with Hilltop Securities as far as how this is supposed to work and the legalities of it, which myself and Lori have worked a lot with Maddie. You guys may remember Maddie.
She's awesome.
So she's been helping us with this and helping set good expectations for what fees we can expect when issuing COPs and issuing bonds and those different things, and how that schedule for payment will work to ensure that we're budgeting sustainably and that we're not putting the town in any kind of a financial position that's not sustainable.
Is Maddie a fiduciary?
Maddie, yes,
Yeah,
she
okay.
is. Well, she has a fiduciary responsibility to the town.
Yeah,
She's obligated to
yeah,
have
yeah.
yes.
And I'm also,
Not a commission.
oh, he's still talking. All right. I'm also going to be working with the auditors because I do have to make sure that we are following the Government Accountability Standard Board rules and making sure that this is presented correctly. And so there's still, as I said, this is a draft. And if anything changes, because at one point they said capitalized interest should be a fund, but I think I'm okay where I'm at. But I need to, there's a lot of verification going on because I'm nervous about this debt too, Katie.
Yeah. A lot of debt.
Want to make
And
sure,
all the gold debt too.
want to make sure we're managing that well.
Had a good run.
Yeah, I share the same concerns in looking at the revenue, page 1. It looks like we're drawing down some money from our general fund reserve. In 25, well, actually, end of year, there's not anything being drawn down from there, but it was in the budget, and then for next year, it's in the budget. I mean, I guess, what do we expect the next couple of years with potentially, I don't know, in a recession, but decreased number of people coming up here, lower sales tax revenues, use tax, all that. I mean, it's a little concerning that we don't, we're spending a lot of money and
Relying on sales tax.
we don't know what's going to happen in the next couple of years.
And once we build out the baseline budget, we'll focus on, again, what is the risk of looking at integrating that payment to our budget long term. And, from there, if it's making decisions as far as, maybe we start with the primary building for public works and some different things there instead of the full outlining buildings and the full build out. There's different ways we'll be able to approach it.
So these two line items in the last bucket, It looks like it's around $5 million. Are we drawing that down from reserves in order to cover costs?
Unassigned fund
What
fund
number are we
balance.
on?
It's
Yes.
1039,920 and 1039,999. I'm sorry. Yeah, that's it.
That's fine.
So it's almost $5 million that we're drawing down from our reserve funds.
Unassigned fund. Well, these are the funds that are, yeah. It's
Reserve.
not, they're unused funds with no assignment. So yes, you have an unassigned fund, which is basically over the years, it's been your revenue over expenditures. So yeah, we'll be using some of that potentially.
Well, it looks like we're using about 5 million of between those two funds. How much do we have in reserve, I guess, was the question then.
So right now we're maintaining about 85%, even after the short-term loan goes through for St. Louis Landing. We're still maintaining 85% of our operating budget in cash, which is a healthy place to be. Typically, you don't want to, for our type of municipality, based on tourism and those different things, you want to maintain at least 70% at a minimum of your cash balance to support your operating budget every year. So for 7.8 million, you want to maintain, whatever 70% of that is. So we've been talking with Hilltop Security about this too, and just making sure that we are balancing things right. Unassigned fund balance is just a lot of times just the carryover year to year of unused funds that just passes along. You'll see in the 2024 audited version, 3.1 million of that was utilized from the previous years. But with the sustainable budget, just our core budget will focus on, if we have anything from the year prior passing along, that's one thing. But the primary focus that I look at is 10-39-920 when you're looking at the general fund reserves. And typically you only pull in those reserves for special like legacy type projects, which, the infill for Clayton Court, we're maintaining the $4.4 million for Clayton Court for next year. That's a legacy project, but really these kind of one-time things that you want to pull from your cash reserves for. So I don't know if that answers your question or not, but essentially they're unused funds that are unassigned and are available for the general fund itself, not for water or wastewater fund or anything else, any of the other funds.
Okay, well, if I go back to your last presentation, Lori. Looks like we have a little bit over $19 million in those two funds, is that right?
Well, that's the Colorado Trust Fund, and that includes wastewater. It's all the funds combined. But when we go to the, I don't have a copy of it in front of me, the equity side of the town of Fraser, if you look in the audit for this year, it's in there separately and the funds are broken out. So each one, and this is what we're talking about is just the unassigned fund balance, which the equity was after the audit was over 8 million just for the unassigned fund balance. And this is not touching the other funds. This is, you had revenue over expenses and it's been building up for years.
Okay.
So when the notice to proceed came forward for St. Louis Landing and the discussion took place about the short-term bridge loan, it was discussed how much funds is available for the general fund, which was about 13 million. And if you provide 5 million of that for the bridge loan, which was approved by the board, that still leaves 8 million that are cash balance that we have. And our new revenues budget, again, without any grants in that grant revenue line item, once you zero that out and you zero out St. Louis Landing, which will be 2027, essentially. You're again looking at about $7.8 million for your base budget. That does not include any capital projects or grants or grant matches or St. Louis landing items and all the associated professional service line items that were associated with those projects as well. So when you look through like the public works budget, you'll see line items for engineering fees and professional services that support all those different projects. Those are higher when we have the intense project years because all those require engineering and construction documents. But when you're looking at just a baseline budget, which we're working on finishing to show the board what this is going to look like, you're back down to that 7.8 million.
Michael, much smaller dollars, but what are the discussions on the childcare stand in general? We have something coming up with.
So the town of Winter Park is looking to budget $150,000, $100,000 to $150,000. They're not sure yet what they want to do. My recommendation would be to, if the board wants to budget, which do you have some? I believe you have some of that in here, Lori.
Yes, I do.
I
gotta find it.
You have the childcare line item.
Yep.
What line item is that?
1041,866.
Number
Yep.
1041,866.
1041.
What page?
It's on page 2 and it's 1041,866 child care subsidy for $150,000.
So that's just that'll be another discussion item that we'll have as far as the board's interested in doing that. My recommendation would be to, since we're not subsidizing childcare next year, to maintain that to support the operations. But then once we actually have the childcare facility built and we're starting to subsidize that, we just take that becomes precedent before any type of other subsidy to anything else.
That was part of my bigger thought process.
So
It's just priorities.
So the discussion would be when Winter Park lands on what they want to do, for example, and when I mentioned them just because they're our neighbor and we partner together on these types of initiatives. When we see what they're looking to do, we'll have the discussion item to see, what the board wants to do. Do you want to match it? Do you want to do a portion of it? Do you want to do anything? We'll be having that discussion. But I would recommend, given the county focus on that challenge, budgeting something to support that operation. And then for 2027, once we're subsidizing that facility, that comes from that line item.
That's
And then anything left over, if we have anything left over, can go to the general operations if you want to.
Yeah. Adam, I think about priorities and I think, well, childcare or a remodel on the town hall.
No, I fully think we need to participate in the childcare.
Yeah.
When I mentioned priorities, I was just
Yeah.
thinking of our core responsibilities and I do believe that public works facility and those kind of things are our core responsibilities.
Gotcha.
And that doesn't mean I want to eliminate the other. I'm thinking about opportunistic property purchases, not Clayton Court as well, and some of those kind of expenditures that we have.
Yeah.
That, you'd like to take advantage of, but we may not be able to, depending on how things go.
And we will have a leaner budget with the new public works facility, whether it's the full 2.2 or if we're phasing in that facility or the road or what we're doing there. But, it's going to make this budget a little more lean, and we're working on that. Once we have that, we will have a clear discussion about next year's budget and then what sustainable budgets look like from a baseline point of view. Because is 2023 the first year that we did capital projects, Paul?
It was the first year in a while. We had taken a couple years before we started the sewer project and the Byers water line, but we continued that push. Maybe not, this year is a ridiculous year with 13 projects, but I think it's like Michael said, a lot of legacy projects, the town hall, the church, some water lines that have needed to be fixed, the South Wapiti Bridge that CDOT said you're gonna fix. So just certain projects that are designed to help the town function better, but we've done a lot in the last 3 years, so
get one more good push in there and then, wait a couple years and get another big push.
So we went several years without capital projects.
Yeah, I know
And,
they went to bid.
We've had really good, Sarah and the other staff has done great on grant writing and getting grant revenues coming in for these projects to support them. That otherwise I don't think would happen. And that's been fantastic. I think right now, the federal grants are looking to kind of slow down and kind of
Mhm.
dry out a bit for a while. So we could be looking at a period where we are looking at a more lean budget, with less support from grants for projects. But given the priorities for the downtown, for St. Louis Landing, and the new facilities, I think the town's on the right path for this all. But we can't, you can't sustain a $4.4 million, downtown project every year. That's a one-time in place thing. And then just other projects will require more or less grant funding as needed based on what the budget's looking like. But again, once we have that baseline budget, we'll bring that front and center to the board. I would never recommend moving forward with a COP payment that's not sustainable with our new revenues. So that's something that we're all working on and making sure that we're presenting you with really good options that are well vetted and conservative.
So, and the new revenues are from the bond sales? What are the new revenues?
So new revenues primarily come from everything you see
Which page?
above page 1.
Okay,
So new revenues come from everything from, if you look at 10-36-900 and above.
10-36.
Got that?
900, yeah. Miscellaneous. revenues.
Everything, that line item and everything above it are considered new revenues. So you don't consider unassigned fund balance, basically funds unexpended from years prior that kind of roll forward. You don't consider that. You look at the new revenues coming into the town.
Okay.
And new revenues can be grants, which we have, heavily budgeted for next year, taking advantage of the over $5.8 million that we have for grants just budgeted for next year's projects.
Okay.
And when we start to really close those out and get reimbursed for all those. But again, when you zero out grants, you zero out the St. Louis Landing expenditure. That's in the town board section for expenditures.
Mhm.
And you bring down a lot of these line items that are associated with these capital projects, you get to your base budget. So, but yeah, new revenues will not count on our cash reserves or anything like that.
So the grants, you're estimating we're only gonna get $1 million by the end of the year, but we budgeted over $6 million. Is that coming next year?
Well, part of this was the right-of-way acquisitions for Clayton Court, which we're looking really good on. I'm scheduling a closing right now for one of them, and we have executed with Fraser Downtown LLC. And I think right now we're just scheduling closings. So I actually was scheduling closing dates. The acquisition of that right-of-way is what prevented that construction project from happening this year. In addition to accounting for the gas and the power curveballs that kind of came with all that, in addition to just the goofy infrastructure that exists in that road and straightening it all out, which has been a challenge. We have budgeted the 4.4 million for this year just to reserve those funds, hoping that we will get some of that done. But I don't know if that's going to be possible. So again, we're rolling those funds forward for next year. But 1.5 million of the grants for 2025 was based on that project being finished this year, which we won't touch those funds most likely until next year. So we will be spending plenty of time on this throughout the next month and a half, 2 months. So happy to answer other kind of informational questions, but these numbers will change as we kind of get more finite with these different line items here.
Any questions? Public have any questions? Go ahead.
I didn't have as much time as Lori here had, but just looking at the quick review of the budget. I came up with 13.1 million that you guys are bringing in. You're spending close to 16.7 million, 3.6 million gap. I know we have cash reserves, Michael. I don't think they're going to be enough in the long run. The executive and administrative wages are between 620 and 640,000 a year. That's 10% of your budget. Lawyer fees are 350 to 450 a year. Most of that is spent on fighting citizens for their rights, their property rights. Total consultants, professional spending, 2023 was $1 million. 2024 was 967,000. 2025 budget was 1.1 million. There's a possible money shortage you guys might be looking at, close to 6 million a year, 500,000 a month. That's if you don't sell the bonds for St. Louis Landing. How many bonds have we sold for that so far?
We close on the bonds in December.
Good to know. Key areas that could be considered non-core to basic town operations. I like the marketing, but that's something that could be cut out. Mills and entertainment, that's 40,000 to 50,000 a year. Sustainable programs and recycling is 125,000 a year. Child care subsidy is budgeted for $150,000 this year. I care about children's education as well, but that's a lot of money that this town's putting out for non-residents child care. Arts and public spaces is around 90K. Professional services, consultants, beyond legal and engineering, you spent about 650K last year. That's from a quick read of your thing. The way they do the budget for you guys makes it really hard for you to figure out the real price.
Thank you. Mr. Lipscomb, you have your hand up.
Hello? Can you
All
guys
right,
hear
we
me?
can hear you. Yep.
I turned my video on, but the host won't let me. So anyway, good to see all you guys. Sorry you can't see me. A few things on this. I think presentationally, it would be really helpful for the town to include its balance sheet when it's doing budget reviews. So we can see how much is in the actual account balances in the funds and where the town's assets lie. And specifically, we talked about this last year, but nobody knows how much money is in St. Louis Landing. And we talked about creating a separate account for that as an example. That's just a great example. But it's really hard to do budgeting when you don't know what your checking account balances are. I understand the revenue and expense side of this. I have a lot of questions on it. But I think it would be really helpful if we could get a current balance sheet. And maybe your budget group can get that too. And maybe, is that something that y'all can provide?
It was with the presentation of the audit, but yeah, that's available.
Well, I just think it's relevant, Michael, to, what the fund balances are today and what they will be if this budget's approved if they actually spend all this stuff. So on the childcare thing, just real quick, I think we should not be subsidizing childcare with town funds, and it's not part of the town's core business. I understand there's a large wait list. I think there's lots of opportunities at the childcare facilities to increase their revenues, manage their expenses, and have more students. But personally, I didn't get subsidies when my kids went through the program. I know a lot of people that did that shouldn't have, and I would be concerned about how's that going to be administered, who's it going to, and then are you guys having to watch over, some other nonprofit childcare group to see if they're efficiently using the funds the town gave them or if they're squandering it. So my personal opinion is strip out that 150 grand. If Winter Park wants to do something like that, let them figure it out. But again, I think there's better ways to run and operate that business. One of the things that I'm a little bit concerned about, I'm looking at roughly $72 million in COP and bond. Is that right? In 2026, I'm just, crude math, 73 million.
Yep.
Is that right? And is the interest expense, what's the interest expense projected on that? Do you know what the interest expense projected is?
I think for the bonds, it's 6.2. For the COPs, I can't remember what the COPs are.
Yeah.
It was
Projecting for that, but we're pretty far away from, I mean,
because
the COPs will go through their own individual process.
But,
the COPs are considered a lease payment and it's a combination of interest and principal.
okay, but we're projecting, just as an, you're talking about just use Michael's number, 6.2 million in interest. And we've got 4.8 million in sales tax revenue. And there are no new revenues, guys. I mean, the revenue, unless you guys pass more taxes or, could get them approved by the voters. So your revenues are relatively stagnant. And what would be real helpful in a budget like this is to have a variance report with columns of dollar variances and percent variances year over year. And going back to 2023, because I mean, just simple math on some of these, I mean, 185% up, 94.5% up. There's one that's 598% up in terms of spending. But your revenues aren't increasing at a pace to cover those things. So I realize you have a decent savings right now, but I get real concerned about servicing debt of, call it $73 million on a fairly modest revenue budget, right? 13 million, and you've got other operational expenses to deal with. So I'm just curious what this board's thinking as to, how that's going to be managed. And I mean, Lewis keyed in on, some of the other stuff that I was looking at, like grants. We had a budget of 6.39. Looks like year end, we might have $1 million from grant revenues. I mean, it's great that we have a grant revenue line and we can get grants. But, and Michael, I think you explained that that's a timing thing. So you're still going to get that money for the Clayton Court construction project. It's coming next year. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay.
And for the lion's share of the grants associated with St. Louis Landing. Because building C is expected to be finished November of next year. Building E, January, and building D, I believe, in June or July.
And this debt's going to fund the
2027.
construction of all of those, or is there going to be more debt?
That's for the construction of all these.
It's for all 4 of the buildings?
All
Three.
three of the buildings.
Okay.
Yep. Buildings
And,
C.
and the public works facility, the 73 million is public works and all of St. Louis Landing, right?
Right, but Lori, the bonds, that's not going to be maintained in our budget. That's going to be with the project, right?
Yeah, it'll
St.
be
Louis Landing.
maintained down in the debt service fund and then it'll go straight to the project.
So that'll have its own project financing, which we'll dive into eventually what that's going to look like. But that'll be on the project itself, not on the town.
I think that's a
then-
really good point, Michael. That's a really good point is in this budget, you almost need, I mean, your biggest expenditure is that project. And this roughly 73 million, 61 of it is going towards that project, right? On the COP and the bonds. So why wouldn't you in this budget have St. Louis Landing pro forma? So you can see your rental projections, your expenses, debt service there, because the town shouldn't be servicing that debt, correct?
Correct, and that's been in all the presentations for St. Louis Landing is showing that pro forma.
Right, but you're showing the debt going on the town's books. So why would the debt not be going directly into that project? Like, is the town a conduit for the debt?
The Fraser Housing Authority is a conduit for the bonds.
Okay, but the town's issuing the bonds, not the
Correct.
project.
The housing, yeah, the Fraser Housing Authority, the town. Yeah.
Okay, but I mean, do you understand what I'm saying? The why is that debt on these books? Because these are the town's books. When really you should be looking at the Fraser Housing Authority books. And what I heard in those meetings is, if you can't service the debt, they're taking the property, foreclosing it, wiping it out, whatever. But the town itself isn't responsible if the project can't service the debt. That's what I heard. And is that still correct?
That's correct. There is flexibility built into the project. But but yeah, if it's ultimately on the project. It's not going to be on the town's liability.
Right. So why would you have the COP and the bond proceeds as a revenue line item on this?
Because that's how they have to come in. They have to be able to come in through the Fraser Housing Authority for the bonds, because the Fraser Housing Authority is who issues the bonds.
But this
Um,
isn't a budget for the Fraser Housing Authority, is it, Michael?
We do have the Fraser Housing Authority fund at the very last fund that's on the budget.
Okay, so that's on the last page.
Yep.
Except that doesn't show the COP and the bond funds coming into that Fraser Housing Authority next year.
It shows the
It's actually
transfer
showing-
from the debt service fund, which is the bonds.
But that's only showing $16.8 million and there's 73 million. I mean, I'd be glad to come meet at your office and you can try to explain this to me, so I'm not wasting everybody's time here. Maybe I'm don't understand what you're doing.
Yeah, I'd be happy to sit down and chat through with you.
Yeah, but I mean, you guys understand what I'm looking at. I'm looking at $73 million in debt issued by the town between bond issuances and COPs. And I'm looking at the Fraser Housing Authority Fund receiving 16.8 million of that bond issuance. Is that a correct assumption?
Right. And the COPs, again, will go through its own vetting process. That'll be a whole series of meetings for the COPs and presentations.
But I don't understand what that means. I mean, this is a budget hearing, so I don't care about the COP process. We're seeking 30, it's a number.
Yeah.
We're seeking a big number in certificate of participation money, 33.5 million, right?
For the bonds, correct?
But that's
Oh,
the
wait,
bonds.
I'm sorry,
No,
that's for the
that's
COPs.
the COP proceeds.
So 29.9 million. Right.
Plus,
So
the 3 million is about 33 million for the bonds.
Yep.
But I had to split that out to carry some of that gets put into the capitalized interest.
yes,
According to Gatsby, we run debt service, which manages all bonds, all interest, all payments in the debt service fund. And then the funds are distributed. The bonds are going to the Fraser Housing Authority. The COPs are going to the Capital Asset Fund for the Public Works new building.
Okay, but Lori, am I correct that the bond proceeds are 29.943 million and the COP proceeds are 33.5? They're two separate amounts, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, and if the 29.9 million is coming in to the debt service fund through the town, it's a conduit to get at the housing authority. Why doesn't the 29.9 million show up in the housing authority's fund account instead of 16,893,960? Where's the rest of the money?
We anticipate, actually, it's going to be saved in the debt service fund and the Colorado trust funds for both of the bond and the COPs. That money's going to stay where it is. I'm trying to demonstrate exactly how much of the project will be completed next year. We are anticipating completing 60% of the St. Louis landing, which is the 16 million that's showing as an expense down in Fraser Housing Authority. And we're anticipating, should the bonds all come true and everything happens, we're anticipating about a 35% completion because we won't get the COP funds and probably won't get this project started until later in the year. We anticipated a 35% completion. So I'm demonstrating to the state that we are anticipating using that much in the funds, the capital asset fund, where I have the $11,550,000 anticipated expenditures In the meantime, the remaining balance of the COPs and the bonds will be held in the debt service fund, and they will be held in Colorado Trust, and they are separate from the general fund.
So they'll continue to accrue interest, interest earnings on that, those bond proceeds until the funds are needed to be expended. So the
So
only amount
what's-
that's reflected in the Fraser Housing Authority is what's expected to be spent next year of the bonds.
But
Okay.
is the COP proceeds, are they purely for public works?
Yes.
Yes.
Public
Okay.
Works and the construction of the road,
Okay.
the dirt road for the
Well, that
drainage.
answers a lot, because I didn't know, so the 11,550, and I think Lori's explanation, the 11,550 is only really a third of the Public Works project projected.
Correct,
Right.
because accounting wise, basically the government doesn't really recognize it until it happens.
Right. So my
But
question
this
is,
is
if
our
you,
anticipation of what we're gonna have happen.
but if you're going to secure 33.5 million of COP funds and have it in a bank account, why wouldn't you just finish the Public Works facility and the road and just knock it all out in 1 year?
Because we don't think that's possible.
So, okay, let's go.
Okay.
Okay, you
Mark, I'm
done.
happy to sit down. You
Are
asked
you
good
volunteering?
questions. I'm happy to sit down with you and go through the budget and just make sure all our ducks are in a row. So
No, I think that'd be great, Michael, because I'm just having some, I guess my struggle is we're going to issue $72 million, but we're really only going to spend 27 of it. So we're going to have the balance sitting in a bank account, which presumably will be earning interest. I get that, but it also has an interest expense associated with it. And I think the interest expense is what's reflected on the books of 1,120,000 and 884. Is that the net of the differential projected, Lori, between the interest earned on the deposited funds that you don't use and the interest expense owed to the bond and the certificate of participation people? It's roughly $2 million in interest.
which line item are you talking about, Clark?
On the debt service fund, there's 1,120,000 and 884,400. I think that's the interest.
Maybe,
I wish I had my.
maybe give us the page and the number. That's
Oh,
useful.
sorry, it's 403810. I mean, basically, guys, I'm just trying to understand what the net differential cost of borrowing money and parking it. What's the spread? And the cost to the residents of Fraser? And is it really beneficial to do it all at once? Or if you're going to spread construction over 3 years, could you not do COP of a third of it this year and a third next year and a third the next? I mean, I'm just spitballing here, but it just seems like a whole lot of money to borrow and then sit on it in a bank account.
Yeah, for COPs, you're required to spend so much funds every year. And there are certain levels that you have to expend any interest earnings to prevent arbitrage. But we're anticipating the issuance of the COPs April of next year. Once with the assumption the board approves that COPs for the construction of public works facilities, which is again a whole process that we're going through. We're just trying to show in the budget accounting for those funds, with the assumptions that COP will be issued to the full amount to build the full facilities.
Okay. I mean, you understand my concern, I think, but and maybe you can, explain it, the ideas better to me. Another one that I didn't understand, professional services. Historically, I mean, you're running like 15,000, 27,000, 65,000, and then you've got 400 and 450. Is that related to the public works facility design, the professional services? Why did it balloon to 400 and 450? And we got a $400,000 budget, but a year-end estimate of 15,000 for 2025 for professional services.
Yeah, that line item is going to change.
Okay.
I talked to Paul about that today. So we're looking again at, because what this budget does not account for. Oh, we do have the account for the partial COP payment here.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we're that 450 is going to come down significantly.
But is that like, I mean, professional service, I consider engineers, architects,
Attorneys.
lawyers, things like that. Is that what it is?
That's my understanding, right, Paul?
Paul Johnson, Public Works Director. Previous budgets hadn't accounted for some of our professional services in the past. And so the 2025 budget lumped those all together. Going forward into 2026, I've separated those out. So engineering fees is strictly our design and engineering fees we do on our in-house projects, construction and administration on our projects. And then other professional services for public works is soil testing, survey, geotechnical, all of those items, just accounting for those, because on all these projects, we end up hiring a geotech, we end up doing a survey. So it's just trying to capture those costs that seem to have not been in budgets prior to last year.
So Paul, is that there's no other line items that break any of those items out. This is the line item to capture. I agree with you. All those things happen and they cost money. This line item is reflective of all of what you're projecting for all these different projects.
Yeah, so if you go 106330 is for all of our engineering design and construction admin on those projects. And then the 370 professional services is the Kumars, the survey, the geotechnical work. That's captured in the professional services.
Okay, but is there a reason that it was 400,000 budgeted this year and that only 15,000 is projected by year end?
It'll be much higher than that.
That's just that number hasn't been updated yet. Again, this
Okay.
is just draft. These numbers will change. We're just
Got it.
presenting it to meet the state's timeline, and we'll be diving
Yeah.
into this much more deeper.
So it was
Okay.
with 13 projects. We had a lot of CA, but we're not seeing as much construction administration with Clayton Court not having been able to go forward this year due to utility conflicts and right-of-way acquisition. So a lot of that construction administration cost was wrapped up in that job that didn't go, and so isn't being expended this year. But
Yeah, we got to 95% plans for Clayton Court this year.
we're at 100% right now.
100% now.
That project goes to bid tonight, hopefully, if I can get it, home.
Well, these
Okay.
estimates haven't been updated because the actuals are higher than the.
Right. Some of them will.
Could we
we'll clean up.
table this? This is supposed to be a 5-minute presentation.
Yeah, this is again.
Can you
This
take
is
this
very
offline,
draft.
Bart, to whomever else wants to
Absolutely.
put in their.
Yeah, I appreciate it, guys. I think this
It's not
is,
ready
you know,
for prime time yet.
Yeah, this is probably one of the most important years for Fraser from a budgetary perspective. So, you know, I would just ask that all of you board members understand this explicitly, every single line item. You're responsible for it. And if you have questions, ask questions of your staff.
Yeah, much appreciated. A lot of good points there. Let's close that discussion. Obviously it's going to come back around again. And we'll move on to donor advised funds, board appointments. Lori.
Good evening, Mayor and trustees. We need 2 board members for the donor advised fund board appointments. This is your charitable vehicle administered by the town of Fraser to manage the annual charitable contribution each year. The members work with the Grand Foundation to recommend how much money will be granted to the organizations that have been brought forward and vetted by the Grand Foundation. Grants can be recurring or new charities. The members work together to ensure that the funds that the town is sending out work best to benefit the community. So, any volunteers?
Do you know when the next meeting is? Is it anytime soon?
I haven't gotten a schedule of a meeting. I think it was late October, November last year. Was it?
Yeah.
But I haven't heard from Grand Foundation yet. I'll send another email and see what they have going on.
Do you remember what their deadline is? I think it's October 1st. Is their deadline?
For receiving?
Yes.
Applications.
They're probably, that's correct. Thank you for reminding me. They're still wrapping up the grants that we sent out last year, whether people have actually completed all the requirements and have submitted their paperwork to get the reimbursement from the Grand Foundation. And I thought you are correct. I think it's October 1st. So I'll be emailing those guys and try and see where they're at with that. And then when we might be able to get this put together and how they're going along on utilizing the funds that we gave last year.
I'll do it.
I'd be happy to.
Did we do that last year, Katie?
I did do it last year. It was good.
It was cool. I'll do it this year.
Do you have a line item number for the
Yeah,
donor
I'm trying to
advisement?
find that. How much is in that?
Was it 87,000, I think?
It was 75,000, but this year it's plus fees because there is a fee that we pay out, whereas donor advice funds.
4% to manage and do all the research, and
Which line item?
it's
is
worth
it?
it. She's looking.
Grants and aids to agencies,
Number,
1041, 860. That might get skinny down a little bit. Like I said, I don't have my note that I can look at. I had it up to 97,000. There was one other, KFFR, which is, an annual.
Yeah, they'll come back with the annual appropriations for the different agreements, the various agreements the town approves every year. The KFFR will be there. That's
okay, so that's included.
the line item that we attribute that to.
So let me ask you a question. So in this budget, we kind of hate to go back to this document, but the 2025 actuals through the end of August versus year end, there are a lot of these at the year end.
I haven't, it's my fault. I
Have that
haven't
been
really
updated?
been able to
I
go
was
through
wondering
all
what-
of those and
Gonna
update.
recoup some monies or what was happening there, but basically the year end estimates have not been updated.
It's my fault.
Okay.
Just say that's correct. They have not been,
Just wanted
they have
to
not been
know.
updated.
Sure.
I was overly intense on trying to figure out how your debt service fund worked. So I was
Well, thank
catching
you
that
for
up the other
Thank you for
day.
focusing on that.
Yeah. I was catching up the other day and didn't get as far as I would have liked.
Thank you.
Okay.
Those will be updated.
We got,
Is everybody good with
Yes.
these two?
sure. We got 2 volunteers.
Okay.
You need a motion, Lori, or? Good. I think we're good.
Last year there was a resolution and there's not this year, so maybe just a motion to appoint them.
Want to make that motion?
Yeah,
Make a
like,
motion to approve Katie and Adam to the donor advice fund.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
I,
Thanks, guys. Thanks, Laurie. All right, resolution 2025-1001, authorizing town manager to sign tap credit acknowledgement. Paul.
Good evening, Mayor, Board of Trustees. Before you have resolution 2510-1. There was a change to that resolution to better acknowledge annexation agreements that are pertinent to this. But basically what we're asking is to allow us to sign a letter of agreement by the manager to agree to the tap credits that haven't been recognized formally. I think it's 2012 was the last time we came to an agreement. So
Thank you.
Grant Park's finance team and myself spent, I want to say, about 9 months going over all the records from 2012 through 2023, just to verify all the regional water costs and what those tap credits look like. We came to a resolution on those items earlier this year, and then just this month, I also certified the 2024 costs for regional infrastructure. So this is just getting a resolution out there saying that we agree to the tap credits that are currently owed to Grand Park based on their regional water infrastructure costs.
It sounds as though this is a catch-up exercise.
It is a catch-up exercise. This is something I would like to see us do annually, just to recognize that they've put in $1 million of infrastructure, so we owe them a set number of tap fees. This is something that when I first got here, a previous finance director was working on, and then it just kind of got to the point where I needed to take a look at everything. And so we went through their finance department and myself went through every invoice over those years against what was regional, what was local, what was water source, and came to an agreement on that tap credit fee that's attached to the letter. So just looking for board approval to allow the manager to sign that so that we can move on to starting working on the 2025.
Thank you for answering my second question.
Cool.
Any other questions?
Sounds like it's long overdue. So good work, good research.
Yeah, and it's keeping up to date on this is going to be important. So we're not trying to figure out, what regional water facility fees or costs were 10 years ago, 12 years ago. So definitely commend Paul and Grand Park for working with us to try to get all this hammered out. And hopefully we can keep things a little more simple moving forward.
Great.
Right. I'd like to make a motion to approve resolution 2025-10-01.
If I could add an adjustment to the first whereas, and I'll just read it and you can say so moved if you want. Whereas the town of Fraser reimburses regional water infrastructure in the form of TAP credits in accordance with Article 5.6 of the amended and supplemented annexation agreement for the Maryvale property dated April 15th, 1998, as amended and replaced by Article 5.6 of the amended and restated annexation agreement for the Rendezvous property dated June 4th, 2003, as amended by that certain First Amendment to Annexation Agreement dated November 2nd, 2005.
I have one more question, I guess. Is this exclusive to Grand Park of Rendezvous property, or is this a portion of this?
It's the Grand Park at this,
You got it.
that, all of those agreements take you from the original to the separation to the amended Grand Park.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we reconciled everything with Rendezvous, spread the payments over a couple of years to catch up because they were not requesting, nor did we believe that we needed to owe them any more TAP credits, but clearly our legal team and our finance team validated all that. So this will bring us up to par with both Grand Park and Rendezvous.
Clark does have his hand up if you wanted to allow him to speak.
Sure, Clerk, go ahead.
I actually put it down because you guys answered that, but it's for both Rendezvous and Grand Park. It's the, what we call the Maryville water system, which is
Perfect.
one system.
Cool, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all for your help tonight. And great job on Paul and the staff getting this finally finished. It's been a long time coming. So thank you.
Great.
Yeah.
All right, there's a motion on the table.
I'll make a second with the changes that the mayor just read.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Thanks,
Yeah.
Paul. Thanks, Clerk.
Thank you, Paul. Yeah.
All right. Business Enhancement Grant Policy, Sarah.
Good evening, Mayor Sirkvenick Board. Sarah Katanzarite, Assistant Town Manager for the town of Fraser. And tonight we are talking about the Fraser Business Enhancement Grants. As you all know, before our last board meeting, we had a workshop to discuss the program and address some of the different questions and concerns that came up throughout the year as we were reviewing applications to try to continue to refine the program and kind of hone in on some different aspects of the program. So we do have tonight a staff briefing that discusses, outlines the program once again and discusses some potential updates that are up for discussion and possible approval via a motion. We can still make changes to what's outlined here before anything is approved. So this is meant to continue the discussion on some of the items that we didn't maybe come to a full consensus on. So the Fraser Business Enhancement Grant Program is intended to support businesses and entities undertaking exterior improvements to commercial properties and enhancements to adjoining public spaces in the downtown corridor. The program recognizes that the appearance and condition of commercial buildings shapes the public's impression of Fraser and affects business vitality, and recognizes that Fraser's success is closely tied to the success of its businesses, which provide essential goods and services for residents and visitors, generates tax revenues, and contributes to community life. It recognizes that enhancements to private buildings and public spaces improves the town's curb appeal, reinforces Fraser's identity, helps to attract visitors, and create a more vibrant and welcoming downtown. In turn, these improvements help to strengthen the economy, generate tax revenue, and improve quality of life for residents. The program does very much align with the 2017 Downtown Fraser Strategic Plan. which was developed through public input and identified different goals for guiding future projects in and around downtown, particularly the first three goals of developing a vibrant town center that serves as a focal point for the community and encourages people to stop, preserving and building upon Fraser's fun, eclectic, and historic character, and developing a diverse and resilient local economy that supports locally owned and operated businesses, in addition to fostering entrepreneurship. So goals of the program, I want to keep these in mind as we do kind of discuss changes to the program. One of the primary goals is business support. So really trying to help with business retention and expansion, strengthening local businesses, recognizing that a lot of our businesses do operate on thin margins. So trying to really incentivize improvements to commercial buildings and recognizing that some of these improvements may not happen without that incentivizing and that financial assistance. Focusing on enhancing the curb appeal and beautification of downtown, which in turn is intended to help attract more visitors and enhance the visitor experience, which in turn is intended to increase sales tax revenues. Enhancements can also help with commercial tax revenues. And then really kind of on the more qualitative level in ways that are harder to quantify economically speaking, but enhancing community and quality of life, really creating a downtown that residents are proud of, that can serve as a center and a heart for Fraser, provide public gathering spaces, and then also trying to forward these town visions, the 2017 strategic plan, things that'll come out of the comprehensive plan, the downtown development plan for the Downtown Development Authority. And so by forging those partnerships with local businesses and individuals, to help have that strategic alignment. I'm recognizing that we can help incentivize new commercial growth, but also wanting to make sure that we're maintaining and enhancing buildings and businesses that already exist. So I think the majority of the proposed updates, there was at least a majority consensus on that came out of the workshop. The budget remains at $125,000 for next year, with a maximum award of $25,000 per business space. We did move up the deadline, or looking to move up the deadline to February 1st for priority consideration, with rolling applications continuing to be accepted through August 1st, so long as funding remains. And then looking at taking those unused funds and rolling them into next year's donor advised funds. By cutting off those rolling applications around about August 1st, that gives us about a month to process, approve those, to know how much money may be left in the pot if we do want to roll that money forward into the donor advised funds. Applicant eligibility, I think, is the area that we did not necessarily come to a finalized consensus on. The way it is currently written in the staff briefing does focus on the goal of kind of enhancing commercial properties within the downtown and business district. So for someone to be eligible, they must own or lease commercial property that they are slating for improvements. This bullet point would exclude in the future a Moose and Merchant. They did not yet have a lease or own the property. Properties must be within Fraser's Riverwalk or business districts, be in a commercial mixed-use plan development. So this is the town of Fraser zoning map. This would basically be that commercial corridor kind of all along Highway 40. So any of the areas in red are zoned commercial. Up at the top there, you see the black slash marks in the red. That is St. Louis Landing, which has a commercial overlay on it. And then those pink buildings are the Riverwalk mixed use district. Home occupations as well as standalone residences are not eligible. A mixed-use building that had commercial with maybe some residents up top would be eligible. Applicants must be in good standing with the town, so there can't be any sort of, and I'm forgetting what we talked about, nuisance violations, things of that nature. If they are an entity that's required to have a business license, they must have a current business license. So just making sure they kind of check all of those boxes. Tenants must have written consent from the property owners if they don't own the property. And then a single application may be submitted for multiple spaces or properties for a particular scope of work. So within this eligibility here, it does not focus on nonprofits or for-profits. I would like the board to consider, as staff has kind of talked through this after the last workshop and really tried to hone in on a policy that seems to make sense with the goals of the program and would be in line with the board's desires. We kind of kept thinking of different examples. So I do want the board just to consider residential buildings are currently excluded unless they're part of a qualified mixed-use building. We have shops, retail, restaurants, bars, breweries. These are the kind of businesses that tend to be generating our sales tax. We also have office spaces, which again would be businesses, but likely are not necessarily attracting visitors or generating sales tax. Medical, auto, accounting, other service-based entities. Again, important services and businesses. They may or may not be generating sales tax. Nonprofits, these could be a child care center like Grandkids. KFFR is another nonprofit that we have kind of within this district, as well as the Changes Thrift Store. So nonprofits could have various kind of forms. Also thinking about government services, EMS is kind of within this district that is owned by Grand County. It's a division of Grand County. The post office is a federal entity. This space is leased from a private landowner. Churches, I think generally are not considered commercial buildings. So again, I think they would be excluded with how things are currently written. And then also just considering that we do have mixed shopping centers. If you're looking over by Safeway, again, you have Changes Thrift Store, which is a nonprofit. It's run by the church, but it is within a building that hosts other businesses. And the same thing with like KFFR over in the Murdoch's shopping center. I did send an email out to the board with more information about the donor advised funds because questions about that did come up in terms of if that would be a better avenue for nonprofits. Last year there was $199,060 requested and $75,000 awarded. So it is a pretty competitive fund. Awards tended to be much smaller. Grandkids was awarded $25,000 last year, but a lot of the awards are in that $1,000 to $3,000 range. I think there was a couple for $5,000 and $6,000. So with that, I'm happy to take questions or open it up to the board to discuss if you would like to address any changes to this applicant eligibility, or what the thoughts are.
You don't have the matching fund requirement in here?
It remains the same.
Okay.
Yeah, so it'd still be the 50% generally.
Okay. And that's in somewhere.
Sorry, I largely outlined changes to the program. So if that is not, yeah, it does. It's listed under the 2025 update, so that would remain the same. A 50% project match, though a lower match could be considered with exceptional public benefit. Last year, Grandkids was the one entity that received a lower match requirement.
And can you clarify, I'm not sure where I saw this, go back, so if someone is awarded or gets an award for 1 year and it's less than $25,000, are they eligible for another award?
So,
Is that in this presentation or was this in that?
we talked about it. I can jump ahead here. So we do say, further on in the presentation, if an applicant has been awarded $25,000 and say they request an extension, and so they're looking at the next year, it is proposed here that they would not be able to request additional money beyond that $25,000 for that scope.
I guess my question is, if they were awarded like $10,000 and they want to come back and get more, are they still eligible to get another award?
In the same year and a subsequent year.
Well, what is this?
In the same year.
It's the same year or subsequent year?
The 25,000 addresses a subsequent year, because they would not be eligible in that current year either, because they've maxed out. In the case of like Camber, they came back and requested more money. It really was for the same scope. The way things are currently written, somebody is not specifically, I guess, excluded from coming back up to that $25,000 maximum.
For the same year or for the subsequent year?
for either. Yeah. But again, we can write an additional text as the board sees fit. So for example, if an entity was doing their siding and they said, you know what, like we'd like to do an ADA ramp while we're at this, they could come back and ask for additional funding for that ramp as long as they haven't exceeded that $25,000 maximum per business space.
And the money's available. That makes sense.
And then they're gonna
That's
match
great.
it.
Yeah.
Right, correct.
So when is the deadline for the applications?
February 1st for
February.
priority consideration. And then the same as this past year, if funding remains, they can continue, we'll continue accepting them through August 1st, so long as funding remains. Yeah. To your question, Lewis, we actually did recently get a request from Black Tie. They came in under budget. They were able to find somebody else that was significantly less to do the siding. And so they had asked about windows, and we kind of administratively approved that within their current scope. They have also asked, they still have it'd be about $2,500 left in their approved amount. They've asked for permission to do a mural with the rest of that money. So if the board would like to weigh in on that, they have a muralist lined up. But I told them that seemed a little further out of the original scope, so I did want to ask for board approval before approving it.
I think mural would be great on that building.
Yeah, they had originally been
It's kind of a
approved for
boring building.
$19,688 for half of their siding budget, which was $39,376. And they're currently at 34,000, so they've got about 2,600 left in terms of their amount that was approved, if they are granted the ability to expand their scope.
I don't know, I have a little bit of a problem with that because someone comes in and they get a grant for, say they were sandbagging, they get a grant for whatever, $25,000. And then they find a bid that's lower and then they keep adding, okay, now we get, we have $10,000 to spend, we can, keep doing other things that weren't approved initially because that's our money, right? It's leftovers, our money, and I don't know.
And it's not their money, right? Which is why they have to ask
Right,
the
I mean,
board
we
approval.
approved
and
it
the
for a
board can-
specific purpose. We didn't approve it like as a slush fund that they can do any other projects they want.
Correct.
But
And
they
at this
do have
point-
to, they have to go to the board again for any scope.
Well, not if
change.
it's less than $2,000, right?
And it's administrative.
That would be considered administrative
Right,
within the
so they could
discretion.
keep-
Yeah, but again,
Like, sir, is that supposed to be for an individual request or for an additional change in scope?
so last time we talked about minor scope or budget changes, could be administratively approved. And again, I mean, my response to her was, I feel like this is not necessarily a minor scope change, so I want to bring it back to the board as to whether or not it's approved. Because it's not a slush fund, but again, if it's an item that the board may have originally approved, had it been presented and there's money there, I think the board can consider whether or not they want to approve that. But I meant to bring that up at the end. I don't want to derail our whole conversation
Yeah.
here if we want to circle back to that.
Yeah. So I guess in my mind, the most important issue that we need to figure out is whether or not we're going to use this money for nonprofits. And to me, it seems like it's much cleaner if the donor advised fund is for nonprofits and this is for businesses, right? And we're blurring the line. If we're going to allow nonprofits to either, pick either fund that they want or both,
Well,
kind of blurs the line.
So where is that addressed in here?
Well,
Of
that's
the verbiage?
So
we
right
looked-
now, the
we couldn't
eligibility,
agree on it last time.
yeah. So right now, the eligibility does not distinguish between nonprofit or for-profit. If you wanted to distinguish it, there's a couple different ways we could do it. You could say buildings owned and occupied by nonprofit entities are not eligible. The question then is if they have a private landlord, or is the landlord able to apply for grants to enhance their building? And again, this would have been the case when like Tame Wellness was in Fisher's building, or if the landlord for the property owner for the Changes thrift store or KFFR building, if they want to do building enhancements. You could also limit it to buildings that generate sales or commercial property taxes. That said, some nonprofits are exempt from property taxes. Grandkids actually pays property taxes. They paid over 12,000 in property taxes last year. Changes, I believe, still collect sales tax on the goods that they sell.
I have a question about so the KFFR, so if we approve the dumpster enclosures for the whole complex up to 25,000, does KFFR get to come as a separate entity and ask for more money, although the whole building got the trash enclosures?
So
How does
it's
that work?
the way it's written, it's 25,000 per business space. If you had, to keep it simple, two adjoining businesses, right? Like if you look at like a Tim Kepke's building across from Shell, if we just pretend that's two
Right.
business spaces, if he applies for $50,000 to redo the siding and that had been awarded, then those spaces would be tapped out.
The same for KFFR then? 'Cause of
Right.
dumpster enclosure?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, you get-
And most,
25 per business.
Yeah.
And the landlord.
Well, that's what she's clarifying. I thought if it was just two businesses and the landlord went in and asked for 50,000 for the two businesses with a $50,000 match.
what's proposed here is per business space.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean the board has to grant it all, but technically Murdoch's could, add up the number of business spaces
And
that are
then
eligible.
theoretically, if it was a nonprofit, it could be another 25 from the donor managed funds, right?
Potentially. I mean, you also could take the donor advised funds and say for exterior facade improvements within these boundaries, direct them this way. Because the donor advised funds are generally decided in the fall, you also would have that information coming into when these applications are made. But the post office is another example, right? That building is not, the post office is not a for-profit business, but it has a private landowner who owns the property and is looking to do enhancements there. So wanting to make sure that the policy kind of addresses who you would like, for lack of a better word, to include and exclude, thinking of all these different kind of setups, because it's not just that we have for-profit businesses and nonprofits.
Right.
There's a lot
Yeah.
of different kind of variations.
So a cause and effect that could happen if you say that, if a commercial space is leasing to a nonprofit, and they're otherwise, so they're ineligible for a business enhancement grant because they're leasing to a nonprofit. In my opinion, I don't think that makes sense. I don't think you want to discourage commercial property owners from leasing to nonprofits because it makes them ineligible. You would still be enhancing the exterior
And they're
facade
also
of that
paying
building.
Out to the DDA. The commercial property owner is paying
Right,
property taxes
Yeah.
and paying for the DDA.
exactly.
So
So we had that
that's only
discussion
fair.
about, property owners who are leasing, they're still paying their full property taxes. They're
Correct.
still paying everything.
Yeah.
And it's up to them how much they want to negotiate for the lease, but they're going to charge a market rate lease
Right, okay.
for that space. But there's between that and obviously a nonprofit who owns their own property, which there's only a handful here in Fraser.
And again, I would encourage you to go back to kind of the program goals, and business support obviously is meant for kind of individual for-profit businesses, right? But a lot of these goals are really about enhancing downtown, regardless of, I think, the entity that's making the improvements.
All right.
Board, any other
Fraser?
questions? All right, I will open it up to the public, but let's keep it short. This is not supposed to be that long of a topic.
How many years can somebody come back every year and get 25,000, or is it a one-time deal?
Every year.
I don't think it's been determined.
So as it's currently written, they can come back. But it also, one of the items that's proposed is that previous business enhancement grant awards and past performance, including completion of prior projects, submitting documentation, things like that may be factored into evaluations. And so I think in part, if we were to get a flood of applications from businesses that had never gotten awards and other businesses were also applying who had gotten awards, giving preferences to those who have not. But if a business wants to continue to enhance their program, they are not currently excluded from coming back and asking for money again.
Yeah, I just want to double check because I've been telling people that, so I want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there were some hands up online as well.
If there's anyone online that would like to speak, please raise your hand.
So we can't see him because of this show or something.
Gotcha. Okay. Cool. All right.
I can just quickly also go through the other items. Again, I think there was largely majority consensus on this. Eligible projects remain the same. Ineligible projects largely remain the same. Administrative approvals can be made for applications after the priority deadline that meet eligibility criteria up to the amount of $2,000. Minor scope or budget changes could be administratively approved, and project extension requests with sufficient justification. Extensions are limited to 1 year from original project completion deadline dates. Applicants may not submit an additional application for a scope of work that has already been awarded the maximum $25,000. Previous business enhancement grant awards and past performances may be factored into evaluations, and then town fees and taxes are not waived but may be counted as eligible expenses.
Thank you.
So what do we need at this point?
You need to tell me if you would like to approve it as written, if you would like to include additional language that further distinguishes applicants, be it to exclude nonprofits or to focus on generation of commercial or sales tax, or any other changes you would like to see.
When you said commercial, did you mean property tax or?
Commercial property taxes. Yeah.
I mean, I like it as written because they still have to come in front of the board.
What's that?
Mhm.
Yeah, right. This have to
They
come
still
before
have
the
to come in
board.
front of the board.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
it covers pretty much every base that I can think of. And if it doesn't, they'll have to still come before us and ask.
Yeah.
Well, unless it's less than 2,000, right?
Yeah,
Right.
which is
And that's
administrative.
fair.
And if
I
it
mean,
fits
they're
within our parameters,
capable.
that's great.
Well, I mean, well, the whole issue around nonprofits, they can still get money, but it's through a different fund, right?
Yeah.
Probably.
grant
There's
foundation.
another avenue for them to request dollars.
Right,
That's very competitive,
A donor advice fund that we just appointed.
right. That's what I'm saying. It's not saying
very competitive.
they can't get money. It's just not through this program. This is really for commercial businesses, for-profit commercial business that we collect sales tax and all that.
Well, it
Property
doesn't restrict them from trying or applying. Like
But
like
they have to-
changes, we keep on, using them as an example, like changes are in a commercial building. If they want to make an improvement to the outside, I think they should be able to apply for this.
The landlord or the owner could apply for it, right?
Right.
Or
Maybe they don't
changes.
want to.
Like if they
With
need to
with
do
the
some.
approval of the landlord, yeah.
A nonprofit wouldn't be requesting it. It would be the landowner.
Well, no, I mean, if changes wanted to change their sign and wanted to, make improvements in that way, then I think they should be able to apply. And it's up to the board at that time to say, no, we don't want to approve that or not, but I think they should still have the right to apply.
Mhm.
Because the idea behind this whole project, this whole thing is to make Fraser
More
prettier.
attractive.
Yeah,
Yeah. No matter who owns it, who's doing it.
right.
I'm good with it the way it is. I think it's very well done. And it allows us some flexibility. And again, as you said, the larger dollars still come back to the board. And it's spelled out the parameters.
I agree with Katie.
I'm good with that. Yeah. Thank you. Good job.
Thanks, Sarah.
Great. If we could get a motion that to approve the changes as outlined in the staff briefing.
Make a motion to approve the changes outlined as set forth.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay,
Thank you.
thanks, Sarah.
Thanks, Sarah.
Okay, on to updates. We'll start with Antoinette.
Hello, Mayor and Trustees. Antoinette McVeigh, the Town Clerk. So this is our email retention schedule policy that has been proposed. And so the matter before the board is as a part of our ongoing efforts to improve email management, security, and compliance with the Colorado Open Records Act. The town is implementing a new email retention policy effective January 1st. And managing email retention is critical to efficiency responding to public records requests while reducing unnecessary data storage and security risks. So on March 1st, at 2023, the board did adopt resolution 2023-0304, adopting an updated open records policy. The email retention policy aligns with the updated open records policy and the state records retention schedule. Email is meant to be a communication tool and not a management system. Important records must be properly archived to ensure that both compliance and future accessibility. Town staff has worked together to develop this email retention policy. It has to be rolled out to the board also. And the destruction and schedule has been presented to guide this process. Members of the Board of Trustees and the Planning Commissions are provided Town of Fraser email addresses. However, you guys do not have access to the town's servers, so your emails cannot be saved on our server. So all of your emails and your Outlook and Office 365 cannot be retained beyond the 2 years. Please note that any email correspondence that has been saved may be subject to disclosure over the open records request, and therefore such email must be stored in a location accessible by the town clerk if it needs to be saved beyond a 2-year retention policy. If an email contains information with long-term or permanent value and it must be retained beyond the 2 years, then this should be forwarded to the town clerk for archiving, and the town clerk will evaluate the content to determine whether it meets the criteria for long-term preservation. So again, the policy will take effect on January 1st. Emails that will be automatically deleted on the 1st of each month, beginning on January 1st. This will include all emails that have been reached the 2-year retention period across all folders in your inbox, your sent, deleted, your junk, drafts, subfolders everywhere. This process is automatic. It is not a manual process. This will be done on the background by our IT team. So I'm asking you to, prior to January 1st, please review all of your emails approaching that 2-year retention period. After this date, these emails will no longer be retained, and they will be permanently deleted, and they will not be recoverable. Things to consider in what you save, all correspondence to and from a town attorney or special counsel are considered confidential and are not required to be disclosed in an open records request. And then if you have an email, chain that has been running or existed that will reach a 2-year mark, only the emails of that chain that were originally sent or received 2 years ago will be deleted. The contextual tail of the details and these replies and forwards will remain, and the newer emails and house the information for those older emails, but the original emails themselves would be deleted. So this is just to help us with our records management. Our IT team does currently have access to everybody's email. Should we get open records requests, we can search your emails currently. You cannot save emails where we can't access them because they are all open to records requests minus those specific town attorney or town special counsel emails. This does align with the open records policy that we've already adopted. So we don't need to adopt this or approve this, but I needed to make everybody aware of this is happening starting January 1st. I did roll this out to the Planning Commission last week, so our commissioners here already know about it, but the rest of you are hearing it for the first time. Does anybody have any questions about that?
I have hundreds of junk. I mean, that are, say, security risk and stuff like that.
They will automatically just be deleted.
At
Yeah,
the end of the
nice.
month.
The first of every
And-
month.
Perfect.
Yeah. So you don't need to do anything
After 2
Yeah,
years.
do that to my
after 2
personal-
years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Make this a national rule.
Yeah.
I know for me, I'm not great at my email inbox either. I'm just as guilty as anybody else of not deleting and going through my emails. So this really helps. We've had issues with inboxes as employees have left the town, the new person replacing that person has received their inbox with years of emails and nobody has the time or the energy to go through those. So we are avoiding that. The internal staff, our policy is a little bit different since we have access to our servers to save really important emails for future reference. But you guys do not have that access.
Thank you. I think that's perfect.
Yeah,
Great.
great, thanks.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Right, other updates?
I've got plenty, but Sarah, wait till the board has any.
No.
I've got a couple for you. I'm pleased to announce that after years of work, we have received approval to modify the boundary for the protected natural area from the St. Louis Landing. Sorry, did I say that right? My brain's not working. We've received permission to modify the boundary for the protected natural area that's on St. Louis Landing. So we have been working with Jeff Elliott and Grand Environmental to kind of map out all the wetlands and provide a bunch of data and information that we could provide to the Army Corps of Engineer to request permission to modify the boundary. This modification removes the Edna Tucker Way Road and Bridge from the PNA, which was the request that they made versus us requesting permission to change the deed restrictions to allow a bridge through the protected natural area. They did find when they were doing this work that there was 0.03 acres less of compensatory wetlands than what was initially required back when this protected natural area was put in place before the town owned the property. So we have agreed to doing some stream restoration work to make up for that lack of wetlands that again happened before we took on the property. So the other piece of it though is it allows us to finalize the permit request for the Edna Tucker Bridge and move forward with the bridge. So
Wonderful.
yeah, so good work to Garrett for pushing that across the finish line with the board there.
Yay.
And then the bike park, as some of you may have seen, we're getting close. We're getting close. There's still a lot of piles of dirt. And they're getting in some of the different kind of bike features for the skills area and bicycle playgrounds. But the pump track, Paul and I were out there last week after we got all that rain and noticed some pooling of water in a couple places. So they have somebody coming out next week to address that and do some repairs there on the pump track. But once that happens, the pump track should be good to go. They're hoping that they can finish up the different skills areas in the next 3 weeks. Obviously, this time of year, it's very weather dependent. But they've been out there 7 days a week. I went out there with my kids yesterday to talk to them, and we left at almost 6 o'clock, and they were still all working. So they're doing their best to get it done. We know there's a couple things in the central hub that are going to be finished out next year in terms of setting up this shade sail and things like that. But it does leave us with the question of we tried to schedule a soft opening and likely partial opening that people could get on the pump track, maybe some other areas and ride for a couple weeks before it's covered in snow, or if we wait till the spring and just do a grand opening when everything's kind of more polished and ready to go. We know people have been chomping at the bit to get on the pump track.
I saw somebody riding on there yesterday.
Who did you see riding on there yesterday?
I saw some kids over there.
Someone was out there.
I know they had some people from the bike crew out there over the weekend riding it. I may have officially helped test it with Avid and my children yesterday afternoon. They need somebody to test it. But yeah, I mean, we've talked about trying to do something maybe the week of, I should have opened up my calendar on my desk. around about October 19th. Again, it's just really hard to know with the snow. The pump track should remain rideable a little bit longer. If they're not finished with other stuff, we can put up some construction fencing.
I think
But
so.
really, we just like to know how the board feels about it.
Let them ride.
Let them ride, as long as it doesn't damage any of the other features that are in process.
There's a grand opening or something, or?
Next year.
The idea is that we would do a soft opening and then we'd have like a kind of full-blown event late spring when it's ready to ride next year.
Yeah, they want it. It'll be fun. Make people smile.
I had like.
Yeah.
dirt bikes.
It's exciting.
Okay.
No dirt bikes. Non-motorized.
Non-motorized.
I know. I'm just saying, I don't even have a bike. I don't know what's going on.
Your 9-year-old. Great, that's good news.
Yes, Cubby will be out there.
I don't know that they will be. Yeah. Yeah. Is everyone in agreement?
What's
Are we
that?
going non-motorized?
Non-motorized. Non-motorized. We
Okay.
don't
Imagine
need people
e-bike
going
going
fast.
fast.
That's what we already will.
With the exception perhaps of adaptive
Yeah.
equipment.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, we're looking at maybe October 17th-ish if we want to do that. I'll send something out and confirm a date once we have it to make sure that hopefully most of the board can make it. Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome, thank you.
I have one update. We are going to be applying for a whistleless crossing here in Fraser.
Woo, woo.
Yes. Apparently it's the crossing is already safe enough that it qualifies for a whistleless crossing. So we are going to bring something in front of the board in 2 weeks to approve.
Okay.
Did either of you hear the train go last night? The loudest train ever that did not blow its whistle?
Did he? No.
Nothing. Last night, it was the loudest train, like, like a tornado sounding like freight train. No whistle.
Was it just the weight of the train, not the horn?
You could just hear the train, but no horn.
Interesting.
Think about it. Listen for it tonight. Maybe I'll be back.
Okay, super heavy,
Just
I
wait.
assume.
Big boy steam engine that
Military
you
train.
see advertised on the news that comes
Sorry,
through.
you
a
could see what
couple
was,
times
but
a
it was
year.
like no whistle,
I don't-
all train.
It's like
Yeah.
a giant antique.
I've got a
engine
few
that comes
updates I can throw out.
Okay, Michael.
Yeah.
St. Louis Landing is looking to go vertical for building C in about 3 weeks. So that'll be exciting. The demolition for the historic church is completed. They're moving fairly quickly with that project for that renovation.
Good.
With that expected to be completed end of November.
Okay.
Front of town hall will be open in about 2 weeks, and the new awning will be coming in and installed in about 4 weeks. So you don't have to use the side entrance for another couple of weeks here. October 12th, and we will be advertising this. October 12th will be the next community cleanup day, from 9 to 4 p.m. And it will now be at 6W, which is where the new public works facility will be. It's going to work much better for traffic flow and prevent the congestion of people trying to drop off recycling and trash while also trying to do
Good
the
idea.
community cleanup drop off stuff.
Will there be more dumpsters available? I know they were full at like 10 a.m.
Yeah, they'll have more dumpsters because they have more site. 4 30-yard roll-offs.
Those are
be
big, those are
provided
high.
there, so we'll
I
have
was
more.
supposed to pick up my neighbor's trash. By the time I came back with my empty truck to get his, it's full. And his mattresses are still in the alley. It's not his fault, really.
Yeah.
I mean, he was getting it out for dump days, but
It's coming.
it filled up so fast.
And how about the metal recycling container?
Get after them for the money. Need some
I'm
bring it
not
up.
gonna forget about that.
I'm sorry.
That's
I think-
okay.
I know we talked about this. I just can't remember
Yeah.
the answer. I'll
So,
tell you.
right, because when they did their
Yep,
initial
the proposal
proposal, they
has
said
to-
there was no charge for it.
Yeah.
And I feel like we need to
I'll
have,
follow up. I apologize for that, Katie.
'cause a lot of people that get the metal that they leave out for the trash company or
You
trash
can
man.
take
it's not-
metal to Ranch Creek Ranch or Ranch Creek Waste for free
Okay,
to drop off.
all
They
right.
don't
that's
charge
good
you
to know.
there.
QR code will be going up to the drop this weekend.
Good.
It will also be available at 6W for the drop off.
Awesome.
Donations to support the drop. So we have that set up,
I like
established.
a Venmo?
and Ready to rock and roll.
Okay,
All right.
not Venmo, but
when you pull up the QR code, you just input your information, you can save it. And it just goes right to that donation. It's not Venmo.
Cool. All right.
Yeah, it's another payment system. Yeah,
Interesting. All right. Try it out.
it's
Good.
easy. Yeah.
Hope it brings us in some revenue.
That's really it for me.
I move to adjourn.
Any further discussion?